Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge, and welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. I'm sitting down in one of our small studios, our isolation booth that we turned into telemedicine and telelegal during the pandemic. So, still like that. So, if you ever need to jump on a Zoom call and you don't have the tech with you, come and jump in the Fledge, and it's here free to use by anybody for any reason. Also, the reason I'm down here is because Refuge Recovery is back meeting face to face again, at least for a bit, at the Fledge. So, Refuge Recovery, a more Buddhist based addiction services. So, check them out if you'd like. And I also want to give a shout out to Fugly, my man, Robert Montavo, and the fashion company. I think it was. Something McGillicuddy or something like Fugly McGillicuddy was the name of the brand. So shout out to Robert Montavo. I went to high school with him and crossed paths with him so many years later in the fashion industry. And then, of course, Joe Walker, the champ, and thisent.com. So thanks, Joe, for everything you're doing. And he just made me an offer I probably can't refuse today. So thanks a lot, Joe, for everything you're doing. Now let's get to my guest, Tess. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I haven't done a show this late in a while. I think my last one, the guy was from Dubai or Tel Aviv or something, and so we kind of did it in the middle of the night. So,
oh wow.
But thanks for coming on the show today. And I love experimenting with the time. So we'll see how many people watch live and how many watch later. And, all of life's an experiment, I think.
That's right. Well, one of the benefits of going this late for me is that you might hear my son practicing piano in the background. So we have music going.
Oh, that's awesome. I always love that. I always love when the kids get involved because, that's part of life, part of the journey, right?
Absolutely.
So who you want to give a shout out to? The pianist.
Well, yeah, my son Phoenix is practicing upstairs. Well, I want to give a shout out today to Claire Subak, who recommended you to me and has spoken highly of you. And she has been going on this journey of self-discovery. She owns Infinity Wellness in downtown St. John's. She's probably been on here.
Yep.
So yeah, I want to give a shout out to Claire.
Yeah. And you must have another friend, Jilly Bean, saying hi, Tess.
Oh, yeah. Jill, I just saw her this weekend. Awesome.
Oh, nice. Where were you this weekend? Somewhere fun?
I did a book event behind Everybody Reads. I did like
that was you?
Yeah.
What? So I had a funeral that I had to go to, and I was supposed to come see Scott, and I saw that he had that book event, and I didn't know if I'd be interfering, and then I was like, I'm just going to go anyway, and then my day got weird, so I'm so sorry I missed meeting you.
That's quite all right. You're meeting me today, so
yeah.
It all worked out.
It's like triple serendipity here.
Yeah, but they were doing that, the sidewalk.
The Summerfest.
And
East Side neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw Jill there, and yeah.
Yeah, we had a booth over by the stage.
Okay.
So, what'd you say about Jill, though?
She makes amazing tea. I know that she sells at the business Mangata on Pennsylvania across from Potter Park Zoo. So if you have an opportunity to try some of her teas, they are really divine. That's the name of them. So yeah, check it out.
All right. 2 shout outs now. Let's get into you a little bit. Where were you born and raised and went to school, and what's your deal?
Well, I was born in Cadillac, Michigan, but my parents were living in Houghton Lake at the time. But it makes for good jokes. Like, I was born in Cadillac, not a Cadillac. And then we moved to Grand Ledge, or Wacusta, more accurately, when I was like a year and a half, So that's what I've really known my whole life is this area. I live in St. John's now, but I really have, been brought up and raised in kind of the country area of, Grand Ledge, Waukusta. And that's been my stomping grounds my whole life.
Well, I was thinking we were going to be able to talk about ice fishing for the next half an hour, but you were only a year and a half. So isn't Houghton Lake tip-up town? Is that what they call it?
I don't know. We left when I was a year.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But tip up, like when you're ice fishing, the tip goes up when you catch a fish. And I think they call Houghton Lake tip up town.
That sounds right.
So Grand Ledge, Waukusta, I don't know how old you are, but I lived in Grand Ledge from 2001 to 2019.
Okay.
So my kids went to school there, all that stuff.
Nice.
So,
nice.
Were but you went up to St. John's? And what?
Yeah. I did my college work at Michigan State University. I ended up I kept getting music degrees and ended up with a doctorate in music performance from Michigan State University. And then my husband, Scott Harding, he teaches at Central Michigan University. And we were trying to find, where should we settle where neither one of us have to do quite so much driving. And we settled in St. John's in 2003, actually. And we've been here ever since.
That I was reading a little bit of your bio. I don't like to cheat like that, especially when I'm just meeting someone the first time. But I saw all the music degrees, and you played with orchestras. Usually when someone introduces me to someone that's going to be on the show, they lead with music because we have all these studios and this venue and all of that. And I was super surprised. So let's talk about that a little bit. What was that like?
Yeah. So music was where I always felt most at home from the time I was 4. I remember being 4 and like starting to compose little tunes, and it didn't stick with me, unfortunately, the composition. I wish that I had kept doing it, but I really got into music performance when I started taking piano lessons when I was like 6 or 7. And I just loved always, for whatever reason, I'm a weirdo, but I always loved the art of practicing and performing. But I could really get lost in mastering a piece of music, and it was good for my ears. It just felt good in my body to be able to play something in time and just really get it mastered. And then I picked up the flute when I was probably 11, I think. And I don't know. We clicked, me and the flute, and I kept doing it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life once I got to be at that point in life where they say, you gotta probably choose what you want to do. And so majoring in music was really just kind of the next step for me. It was really the effortless step. Like I was interested in other things too. I was really interested at the time in politics. Thank goodness I didn't go into that. I was really interested in history. I was really interested in psychology, philosophy. I loved learning. I loved learning about how the brain works, about how, but also how emotions work and how we work with emotions. That just always really, really fascinated me. But music is that too, right? Like music really is in a dance with emotions all the time, whether I'm performing or listening to music. It very much stirs up my emotional world. So it really wasn't a stretch to me when I was like, should I do music or psychology or, it was like, well, what's the difference? I'll just do music since I've been doing that already. But I always questioned though, the music field never really felt right to me. There was just always something about it that I felt like I didn't quite fit in. I didn't quite have that personality that it seemed like they wanted me to have. And I always wanted to explore more of the mystical side of music, I guess. Like I knew that for me, music was always something that was therapeutic. Um, but that wasn't really what, music school was all about. It was very much about play in an orchestra. This is exactly how you play it that way every time.
So, do you mind if I stop you for a second and we can start right back here again? But what I kind of was hearing there, and it actually gave me the chills a little bit, that music for you was coming from within and you just wanted to close your eyes and play, and they had a whole different vision. And who's they, by the way? Is it the man? Is it the system? Is it but I probably your peers and people that did this in a, because you were with the symphony, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but symphonies take a lot out of me trying to get there and trying to, talk to people when you're kind of networking in the lobby before and then intermission and all that. And then, yeah, if they sell wine, I'd be asleep super quick.
Well, I think a lot of it was that the hierarchy of how things work.
Is that a patriarchy?
Yeah. Definitely so. I think it's slowly changing, but right now, as we're seeing a lot of structures change in life everywhere, it's also changing in the orchestral world. But at the time, it was very much, the director of the orchestra is the end all be all and dictates to the orchestra how usually he wants it to be. Not always, but usually he wants it to be. There wasn't a lot of diversity within the orchestral realm. There wasn't a lot of, it was, basically playing the same canon of music, the same, war horses, the same pieces of music over and over and over again. And I had really hoped to be able to explore music of other cultures and, because the flute is pretty universal. But, that wasn't all. You just kind of had to get what you could get. And, as I graduated and went out into the professional world, not a whole lot really changed in that. There's still like this idea, this model of playing the same music for the audiences, and the audiences never seem to age, really. It's just, people reach a certain point in their lives and I don't know, they say, let's go to the symphony. We've reached that age. But I had really wanted there to be younger people in the audience. And, again, I'm not sure the orchestras are necessarily there yet, but there a lot has happened in the last couple of years to start to appeal more to younger and more diverse audiences. So that's my dream. That would be my vision for orchestras in the future.
So you've just completely given me the vision of Lisa on The Simpsons getting up at the beginning and playing her, I think she's playing a saxophone, and walks out of the class because they won't let her, or they won't let her do exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, she wanted to do jazz, and that wasn't good for the band program. Yeah, I get it.
If there were like 200 people sitting up there doing jazz together, that would be super badass. I would definitely stay awake for that.
Yes.
Did you make your livelihood as a musician?
Yep. I still do. I teach, and when we're not in a pandemic, I perform. But right now, I think flute is considered like the worst instrument to be around during a pandemic.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Aerosols and everything. I think second only to the voice, maybe.
Mm.
So yeah, so there's not a whole lot of fluting happening in my life right now, but I'm also a therapeutic musician at McLaren Greater Lansing. After I graduated with my doctorate, I really felt like, okay, there's a lot that I like about being a musician, but I feel like something is missing. And a lot of what was missing, I realized, was there was a gap between how I use music versus how I was providing music. I was providing music as entertainment. And I really felt like, well, how can I provide music as a service, to help people? Because it always meant so much to me when people would say, oh, when you played that part, it just really moved me, or that made me really think about, this part of my life, and it made sense. Like, it was always those moments that made me feel like, yes, the music is working. Like, I did well. And so a friend of mine told me about the Music for Healing and Transition program. And it's a certification program, not just for musicians, but a lot of nurses have been through that program, and psychologists and people from all walks of life who like the idea of being able to provide music at the bedside of the ill and dying. It's not music therapy. I should put that out there right away. Music therapy is more about having a client take part in the music making process, and that that music making process is what rewires the brain, or helps in a therapeutic way. But what I'm doing as a therapeutic musician, or more specifically a certified music practitioner, is I'm providing therapeutic sounds and melodies that can help relax people and get them into more of a relaxation response, so that when they're in the hospital, like the most stressful place to be when you're ill, the music helps them get into that relaxation response so that their body can actually start the healing process.
So you still do this?
Yeah,
And
I do that.
so will you say that I heard the music, or wait, what was it? Music for Healing and
Transition program.
Transition program.
And transition is just, a kind of a sugar-coated way of saying dying.
Do you deal with, like, that threw me for a loop for a second, because I'm thinking of, I've got some very close friends of mine, some fledglings, if you will, that have the Creative Dying Project, and they work on end of life planning, and they actually work on like psychedelics as part of the process that you have to go through. Not that you have to go through, but that you could go through to come to terms with your end of life experience.
Right.
So I was completely daydreaming about how all of this fits together, from mindfulness and relaxation, and the hospice, I guess, and all of that. How I don't even know the question to ask, because I'm so overwhelmed with the different things. Like COVID, was this like you needed most, but probably couldn't do it at all? And
exactly. Yeah, it was. I was a year off. I was furloughed for a whole year, and when I came back after that year was up, it was amazing. I had no idea what kind of response I was going to get. Like, part of me thought, oh, they've probably forgotten about me. I didn't have any idea. But as soon as I walked through that door, people were like, oh, the music is back. And I think part of it was, they might have been a little happy to see me, but I think it was more about the fact that if the music is coming back, that means that we're starting to return to a little bit of normalcy.
I actually feel I'd argue that the nurses being so stressed, the whole system's being so stressed, the patients being very stressed, the families, if they're even allowed within a mile radius of the hospital or whatever, being so stressed. I
Yeah.
would bet it was a lot more about you and not as much about normalcy. They
Yeah.
can see that when I don't know, the
Yeah.
normal janitor shows up or something.
The first few weeks of being back was about me playing for nurses at the nurses stations.
Nice.
Because they needed it absolutely at that point. I went back in March, so COVID was actually spiking again at that point. So there were some moments in the ICU that were pretty stressful, and I would just hang out and play and let them do their thing. And they would say, someone said to me at one point that the music was like, it was like morphine that was wafting through the air or something like that. It was just, they all really needed that at
Yeah.
that time.
I bet it was super helpful. So who runs that program? Is that the hospital or is it a separate
No,
organization?
it's an independent group, MHTP, Music for Healing and Transition Program. You can find them at mhtp.org. And they I guess a lot of the instructors, I know the founding members of this program, they founded it, I think, in 1994. And a lot of them were from upstate New York. And they really felt strongly, well, they knew, the founders knew that music had incredible powers to help people relax, took care of pain, nausea. You can watch on the monitor as people's blood pressure goes down, their heart rate goes down, oxygen levels can increase. And the founders really wanted to find a way to get more musicians to learn what they were learning by experience and get them out there into the hospitals. So,
There's so much work being done, science being done around waves and vibrations and synchronizing with the human body and with nature in general, that to me, I think we are so far away to our true understanding of what's really going on. But there's tons of evidence of everything you just said. I
yeah,
mean, music's super important and it's not here by mistake, you
right.
know?
Absolutely. I was just listening to a book today about sound healing, and I'm not very far into it, but it mentioned in the book that we are just we are waves, we are energy, we're particles and waves, and music is vibration. So it makes a whole lot of sense that when you introduce vibration to waves, that it's going to have an influence over that. And
Yeah.
it does. I see it on my patients that are very hard of hearing. I'll have a very hard of hearing person, and they'll say, I don't know if this is going to work because I don't hear so well. And so it'll take a little bit of convincing sometimes, but as soon as I start playing, they fall asleep.
Yeah. They can feel it.
Yeah.
This is super fascinating. We could spend a long time on this. I just want to give a shout out to Rejuvenate, who was on the show maybe a month ago, who's using sound waves and vibrations in cell therapy and eliminating surgeries and pharmaceuticals for all kinds of different ailments. So you're onto something, they're onto something. We got to quit letting big pharma. That's what's upstairs right now. Refuge recovery, actually. Big pharma, people addicted to the pharmaceuticals, and we could be healing with music.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for all that, Tess. That's
Yeah.
so all right, you get up with your saxophone or your flute, you walk out of the room playing your jazz, and you're gonna go on to do something else real quick, right? Do you want to tell us about that part of the story, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I came to terms with after being in the freelance world, I was teaching at one point in my career, I was teaching at four small private colleges and a community music school and playing in the orchestra and freelancing and playing at the hospital. And I was doing all of that because, I needed to make a living. But that's kind of what it was taking for me to make a living, was to do all of that. And as you can imagine, keeping track of all of the, people would ask me at the hospital, so what else do you do? And I would go through my list of things and I would be exhausted just telling them. And so I realized at some point, I cannot keep moving at this pace in my life, or else I'm going to get sick and I'm going to need someone to come play for me at the hospital. I don't want to do that. So I hit this state of burnout with my career, but I knew that I didn't want to just let all of it go, because that didn't seem right to just walk away from all of it. So I let go of some of my jobs, rearranged financially some things that I could, and just made it so that I could have one day off a week to just think, just sit and think and do nothing and contemplate and just figure it out. And that is what really took me on a journey of really figuring out, okay, what is it that I do love about this? What is it that I don't love about this? And how can I maximize what I do love about this? Mm-hmm. And when I started to think about my teaching, I started reflecting on those lessons that I would have with my students when they would walk in and they would say, all right, I have to figure out what I need to do with my life, and I have no idea. And I would get so excited. All right, let's figure this out. And I just loved asking them questions. I loved getting to know them. I loved watching to see what would light them up. And then having them leave, maybe not necessarily with a solid answer, but feeling like someone heard me and I feel like I know what I need to do to figure it out now. And I realized, well, that sounds like a life coach. Maybe, in order to maximize more of that experience in my life, I should just become a life coach. So I looked into what that would take, and more certification, more school. But, school has never been a problem for me. I always have loved learning. I've loved that process. So I joined the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and went through that program. It took me about a year. I graduated in 2019. And right around that same time, I was thinking about starting the process of starting my business, and thinking about what would I want my business to look like, and blah, 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 blah. So after having gone through all of that burnout and feeling, really stuck in what I was doing, I graduated with this coach certification, and I thought it was going to be the answer to everything. And I was really going to finally figure out my life path. And then all of a sudden I was realizing, wait, I don't know how to start a business. What business do I have starting a business? And one morning in early spring 2019, I must have really been working it out in my head in a dream state, because all of a sudden at around 3:00 in the morning, I woke up with a book title. I woke up with so many ideas. I could not stop my brain from thinking about everything that I wanted to write about. And I knew that it was going to be called The Book of Stuck.
The Book of Stuck. All right.
So I went out that day and I wrote the outline within an hour. And then life happened and I put it away and I didn't do anything for like a year. And then the pandemic happened.
So, well, you didn't tell me before the show that your book was called that, by the way. Nobody told me this. So I love the title. But once you were saying that, leading up to the pandemic, it sounds like you got stuck sometimes, whether you liked it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So was this a kind of a recursive book? Did you learn something and then put it in the book as you were?
Yeah. So basically, I wrote the book for myself, because I was thinking that night when the book woke me up. I swear the book came to me. It woke me up and said, you have to write me. But I knew that this book was going to be my manual. It was going to be my manual for getting unstuck. And I knew it would probably help other people too, but.
So is this a published book and ready to be bought and all of that?
Yep, it's on Amazon right now. So you can find it there and order it, or you can contact me directly.
Hold on that for a second.
Sure.
So I'm just going to put this out here that they can search on Amazon for the Book of Stuck. But how can somebody reach out directly? Because if we can skip Amazon, then keep a little bit more in St. John's.
That's right. Well, they can find me on, I guess the easiest way is my website, www.tess-miller.com. And there are lots of ways to contact me all over there. And they can read a little bit about the Book of Stuck. I have a landing page for that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So that's awesome. Hey, one thing I've been thinking, you said that your husband was a professor at Central?
Mm-hmm.
What's he teach? Can we just ask?
So he teaches music theory, ear training, composition, sometimes jazz history, a lot of different music classes. We're both musicians. He's a percussionist and a composer.
All right. What did he think of the decision of getting away from music a little bit and going on to the coaching, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. I mean, he knows me a little bit, so he could kind of see what was going on, with my mental health state and everything that I was doing. So he has always been 100% supportive and, always a fantastic sounding board for whatever my experience has been. So it's, I'm so lucky to have a partner in my life that is, just absolutely unconditionally accepting of my own process.
Well, something that I'm super impressed with, that both of you were musicians and made a living doing it for 20 years or whatever it was. That's pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah.
So I didn't know where I was going with that, but I remember you had mentioned he was a professor, and I was like, I wonder what he does. I thought you were going to say engineer or something. I don't know.
Nope. No, musicians.
So tell us, how's the coaching going?
It's going well. I mean, it's still in the beginning stages of my business. I have a few clients. I have been doing a weekly live show on my Facebook page, Wings Unfolded, for almost a year now. I put out a video each week and just talk about different topics. Usually it's stuff that I'm working through. And different tools that I'm using to help myself get unstuck or stay unstuck. Or sometimes it might be just something I'm observing out in the world that, is something that could potentially keep somebody stuck in a pattern or a belief system. And, just talk about how they can change perspective, change mindset, sit with it, and just trust the process.
I tried to put Wings Unfolded on Facebook, and for some reason I put a space between the UN and the folded. So now I don't know. I'm just gonna stay there. People will figure it out. um, can you give us a hint? I mean, you show us once a week on Facebook, right? So what's a good tool to get unstuck? Let's throw one out there. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. One of my favorite tools of all time is just journal writing. And that's what a lot of my book is about, is writing prompts to get people to start writing. Some of that is because I know how vulnerable it can be when you're in a state of stuck. Like nobody wants to admit that to anybody. Like, oh, I'm feeling stuck again. Like it doesn't feel good. And it doesn't make you feel like you look good to other people. So why would you want to talk about that all the time? It can make you sound like you're a Debbie Downer. But what I love about writing is that you can just start writing things. And I have learned so much about myself in the writing process, as long as I really let myself go and just really do not censor myself. I can go back and read stuff and say, wait, what? That's what I believe? That's ridiculous. And then you can start to pick it apart and really understand how you've gotten stuck. Like, oh, well, no wonder I'm stuck. If I'm following this belief or I'm following this pattern, it makes sense. Anybody would get stuck there. So writing has been my absolute, but I've written in a journal since I was a kid. So for people who haven't had the experience of journal writing, I know it can be a little daunting. But I'm hoping that the exercises in my book are, pretty simple and just really encourage the more of the focused stream of consciousness. I'll put it that way, because there is always, like a goal in mind when you're writing, or there is always a theme, but I think sometimes people get caught up in the idea of, well, it's got to be good, it's got to sound good, or I'm afraid I'm not going to sound smart enough, and that's not what it's about at all. It's about just really letting yourself be uncensored, because no one's going to read it but you. So I just well let it go.
We talked about this on the show yesterday, actually, too, and it'll become more clear when I tell you who the guest yesterday was. But I went to Lansing Eastern, and I had Mr. Spagnolia, the best teacher ever. He was Teacher of the Year in all of Michigan, and he was my AP English teacher and my World Literature teacher. And in both classes, the first 10 minutes, he might show us an object, he might just say a word, and we had to just write until he said it was over with the writing. And that helped me with everything else I did from the day, whether it was academic or my sports or even just going home and being a person. And I still try to do that, but I get stuck doing it. And like I get a block, even though I know it shouldn't have a block. I should just be able to say blah, 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 and it'd still be okay. So then I read to get unstuck to write. And now I'm stuck not being able to read right now because I'm so focused. It's because of the show, though. The show has absolutely burned me out.
Aw. Oh, no.
Which sounds horrible, probably, but every single show I have so much energy and I get so passionate because I think you guys are so cool. You're doing stuff, you're changing our community, you're making us stronger. I just love entrepreneurs and creatives, and so I get a lot of energy, but then I'm always worried, where's my guest coming from? Who's going to cancel? Who's going to do whatever? And it's completely paralyzed me. So I get this in a really profound way. This pattern of stuckness, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you coin any cool phrases?
Well, I mean, I use the word stuck very often in this book, and I use it like, you know, there's the land of stuck, and, you know, to be in a
Mhm.
state stuck, because I really do feel like stuck can be such a state of mind that,
Yeah.
you know, we sometimes don't even realize, oh, I'm stuck, and stuck is
Oops, we
really
might have froze for a second.
oh, okay.
You got a little bit of a slowdown in the internet, but we're good, and we'll keep trudging through it. And most of the times, the software will put it back together.
Okay, awesome.
Okay,
We were
sorry. Yeah, yes, we were. So now there's you got a whole second book: Zoom stuck, StreamYard stuck, all these different new types of stuck.
right. Well,
Stuck in the arm.
it's so funny whenever I'm stuck with anything, you know, it's a personal joke now. Like, well, you did write the book of stuck, so I guess it's just going to happen to you all the time now.
I'm very interested. I'm gonna look this book up. I've got to order a book from my guest the other day, and I gave my wife my card that I order stuff from, and she took it and had it for a few days. So now I got to order 2 books. So I'm excited to look at it. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
um, what other things that you do? You're a musician. You help a bunch of people, stress people in the hospitals. So not just patients, but the medical professionals too. You're a coach. You're an author. You're a world-class skier. No, I don't know. Is there anything more?
Um, well, I'm a mom.
Oh yeah. How's he doing? Is he practicing?
No, he's done now, but he just started high school today. So,
Oh,
you know, that's always an interesting endeavor. You know, from the time I became a mom, it became very clear that the I think the role of parenthood, or the reason for parenthood, is so that people can relive their childhoods and work through all of the stuff that they didn't get to work through the first time. At
yeah.
least that's what I'm noticing. You know, every stage of the way, I watch my kids, you know, take those steps through a major transition, or, you know, something traumatic, and it's like, oh man, I remember going through that. Okay, what comes up for me about that? And then having to go through that process of reconciling it, you know, remembering it, reconciling it, and then, you know, reconditioning myself, and learning something on a deeper level. So I love it. I really do love that process, most of the time.
Yeah. Being a parent's a tough thing. I've got well, I have an older daughter. She passed away. We'll just put that to the side for a second. And my younger daughter's out in LA with a new job, and my son just bought a new house. And you know, it's really, we became empty nesters like all in 1 week. My daughter moved to LA, my son moved to his house, and all that. So that was interesting. But
Wow.
yeah, I often look at my son and think, don't be like me. Be better than me.
Every parent's wish,
Yeah.
definitely.
So how's all this kind of come together in a mission? What are you trying to do? What's the world look like to you in the future or something?
You know, I just really hope that people can learn to accept themselves and accept their process, because I think we lose a lot of energy in trying to be what we think we should be, when really we just need to be who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest thing that makes us stuck, is when we're resisting who we are.
My hypothesis is that we're born to do something, and slowly throughout life, sometimes quickly, we get knocked off tilt, and somebody tells us, well, you're not going to make any money being an artist, or girls can't program, or boys can't go into fashion, and you get knocked off tilt. And then these barriers like debt and family and mortgages and all these things get in the way, and you can never recalibrate. So that's where the midlife crisis comes from. It's where depression comes from. It's where substance use comes from. And people just pour that all over their problem. I mean, they pour that trying to close the pain in that gap, I guess.
Yeah.
And sounds like you've recalibrated. Sounds like you're helping people recalibrate. And I think that makes our community super strong. I mean, it's not just, oh, you got to dress like this and you got to have these flowers. And that's not you're not doing a superficial thing, right? You're diving, you're questioning.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, if there's one thing that I would want my son to take away from growing up in our household, it's just be who you are. You know, just do that for your whole life, and chances are really good you're not gonna get as stuck. You'll probably get stuck, but not as stuck as a lot of the other people who are constantly looking around and trying to measure up to what they think they should be.
I think that, your story is the epitome of that, or the microcosm, maybe, because, you were stuck in, I don't feel like playing this anymore. I don't feel like, just doing what this man wants me to do. I want to, stand up and shake something or whatever. And then that evening when you had that dream at 3 a.m., it was a different kind of stuck, right? It was a passion stuck. And then you popped out of it with so much good, I guess.
Yeah.
So you can clearly see it in just the example you gave, or your story you gave.
Well, thank you.
I think your hypothesis is very right.
Yay.
So,
love it.
What do you do every damn day to push that mission forward?
Well, I really try to stay grounded in loving myself. You know, that's been a practice that I've had to recommit to over and over and over and over again. Because some days it's really hard. Some days it's really easy, but some days it's really hard. But as long as I'm doing my self-love practices, I know that I will be able to keep taking the next best steps for me.
It just you made me you keep giving me these visuals when you describe what you do or what you're talking about, and I just thought of a leader that is yelling at you all the time and not loving you the way that with the respect and all that, and you're like, screw them, I'm not going to follow them. You're like this leader to yourself, and if you're not loving on yourself, you're not going to get that motivation or that inspiration out of yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that called? Well, it keeps getting recursive with you. You use your own tools to power your own thing, and makes it real authentic, probably, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. For whatever reason, it has always been really important to me to figure it out myself. I don't know. Maybe that's because I'm stubborn. Maybe, but it just has always been, my process is that I learn things best experientially. And, sometimes the experience doesn't feel good. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, especially when you're going through stuck. But as long as I can love myself enough and trust myself enough to know that, all right, I'm going to really fully experience this discomfort, but I also know that I'm good at figuring it out. It might not come to me right now in this second, but let me just wait for the next moment. And I bet something will reveal itself to me at that point.
I hate the phrase reinvent the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. I hate it when people say that to me. And I also hate it with, well, you should just do this. And I'm like, why'd you tell me? I'm doing an experiment. I want to smell the failure. I want to get my hands,
yeah.
burned or whatever. I want to experience it. And you guys are trying to tell me this information. Get away from me. You're wrecking my whole life.
Exactly. Well, and that's the coaching philosophy, is that the people that I work with, they know what they need to do. They have all of the answers inside of them.
Mhm.
It's just that there are blocks and barriers that maybe they have put there over the years, or maybe society has put there, or maybe conditioning has put there. And it's just a matter of helping them pick those things up and move them aside so they can get to the answer that's just waiting for them.
Yeah. And I think sometimes you must help people be objective too, because people love to get disillusioned or delusional.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh
yeah,
yeah. I mean,
I'm
when
vibing with this.
yeah, when we're feeling emotional, not that emotions are bad. Emotions are wonderful harbingers of, so much information. But when we get stuck in certain emotions, it's so hard to really see any other way, any other perspective, any other mindset.
Yeah.
So, that's we have to come to terms with the emotions first. We have to let ourselves feel them and look at them, experience them. And then once you've kind of let that flame of the emotions burn out, then you can start to say, what's another way of looking at this?
So, we're actually going to hit on two of your points in these next three questions here. I daisy chained the shows together. So yesterday on the show, I had Keontae Saxon. He is known as the Conscious Poet. He also, his company's name or his group's name is the Conscious Streamers. So we were talking about that a little bit ago. And his question for you is, how do you remind yourself of your why? So if you get stuck, what makes you get up and go? Yeah, he actually did say stuck. So you are the book of stuck, or
Love it. Love it. I think I go to music. Honestly, I go to music. I go to music that I love, and it always reminds me of who I am. The way that I experience myself oftentimes gives me my why. Or who do I want to be? That gives me my why. So if I can connect in and give myself that self-love and really just constantly remember who I am, then I know what I need to do next and why.
I think you are super onto something because your whole energy is kind of flowing towards you at some level, but it's only in a way that you then it bounces off you and you kind of, I don't know this analogy yet. I haven't worked it out, but the way you're doing this model, it's regenerative. It refreshes you as you're refreshing them. I just
Mm-hmm.
see this model that nobody's really talked about like you're talking about it. I mean, I've talked to coaches before and stuff like that, but I like how it keeps coming back and I don't know, I guess kind of filling the coffers, and then you have more to give, and then you fill and it's more to give, but it's worked in the way that you coach other people, or it seems to be part of your model. It's
Oh, yeah.
fascinating to me.
Oh, thank you. That's a really good point. One of the chapters in my book, I talk about flow, which is actually a researched state of being. It's the opposite of stuck, and it's been most heavily researched by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Don't ask me to spell it. If you want me to, I can send you an email with it. But he was an amazing, or is an amazing researcher. He actually wrote a book called Flow, which would be the opposite of my book. But I talk a little bit about flow in my book and have some writing exercises in there. But the way you're describing that, that's, the state of flow is when we are in that state of, we're out of time, like there is no concept of time. Time can pass, and we have no idea, because whatever we're engaged with, we're only focused on doing that. We have total focus on it, and we're not thinking about anything else. It is just pure flow. And it is, like you said, it's very regenerative. It's very sustainable. And that's exactly, I think, what I realized being burnt out, during that time in my life when I was burning the candle at both ends. I had no way of sustaining that level of energy and engagement in my life. So I had to step out of it at least a little bit in order to figure out what are the beliefs, what's the energy that I'm in that is burning my candle out, and how do I create more flow? Like, what does generate the energy for me, and how do I do more of that so that I don't fall into this burnout phase?
Yeah, I love all of this. So tomorrow on the show, I've got Anastasia Trevino. She owns Bella Vista Salon and Spa. What question would you like me to pass to her?
I've already forgotten the question.
Do you want me to help you?
Actually, can I change it? Because I have another one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What does she do to get unstuck?
The only unfair thing about that question is you already answered it.
Well, everyone's different, right? Like, everyone has their own.
Yeah, but I gotta flip it on you though.
Well, how
right?
about what is her relationship with being stuck?
Well, that's a good one too. I can rephrase the other one though too. Which one you want? It's up to you.
Well, how are you going to rephrase it?
I was just gonna say, if I came to you and I was stuck and you asked me that question and I said, I have no freaking idea, how would you help me get unstuck from my unstuckness?
Yeah, that could work.
So how could you help me? I'm stuck. I don't know how I get unstuck. Quit asking me stupid questions. I don't know. I'm frustrated. It's not a stupid question. That sounded the worst. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean it like that. How frustrated people are assholes.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give me to get unstuck? Would you have to get to know me? Would you have to, ask me more questions? How would that process go?
Is that for me or is that for your guest tomorrow?
It's for my guest. Well, it's for you. But what advice would you give somebody to get unstuck? That's not just journaling, maybe. Journaling? Read your book? All right. That's a perfect entrepreneurial answer. We're going to go with that and go on to the next one because I've been really excited to talk about this, what you call it, harbingers of info, the emotions, happiness, sadness, love, joy, and or hope. What word or words would you like to talk about?
Well, I think love.
All right.
Yeah.
So is there a particular reason you chose that one?
Because I think that we often, well, maybe I'm speaking for myself here. I think a lot of people have an easier time giving love than they do receiving.
By
And
receiving, do you mean accepting?
yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah, like, oftentimes people can be like, hey, you did such a great job at blah, blah, blah. And oftentimes people can switch it around in their mind to think, oh, they don't really mean that, or they're just saying that because, and it can be really hard sometimes for certain people to accept that whatever someone has said, they genuinely meant it. And so, I think it would be wonderful as a culture if we could get to the point where we focused more on the act of giving and receiving love and what that looks like in its many forms. And then it doesn't have to be grand gestures. It can be as simple as just stopping and listening to someone. It can be the simplest thing in the whole world. There are people at the hospital that just workers at the, not nurses or doctors, but just there's one person in particular that whenever I see him, his smile communicates so much love to everybody. Like, he has the same smile for everybody, but it just, you feel his just unconditional love. He doesn't know me. I don't know him, but it doesn't matter. It makes the day go better when you know that someone out there can feel that good, that he can put it out there. And so why not accept that? So if more people could do that for each other, whether it's a smile or listening for a quick second, or helping out in a small way, I think viewing those small acts of kindness as actual acts of love would be phenomenal.
You know what's so fascinating? I had another epiphany. I have an epiphany or two every show, because, like I said, you guys are spectacular. This concept of throwing love out there, right, and pushing it out there. Like, I've preached that even today. I made a TikTok video. I'm not obsessed with TikTok, but I sort of am. I made a TikTok video about, if you can do one thing today, smile at somebody you're scared of, say hello to somebody you're scared of. The problem with that, though, is that any communication, you have a receiver and a sender and a receiver, and it's a relationship. And if we're always sending love, but people are really bad at receiving it or accepting it, then it's a wasted signal, right? We got to work on that other side, too. So
Yeah.
now tomorrow my TikTok will be, so if somebody smiles at you, smile back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the receiving part of it is so important, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can't be a musician if you're not going to receive the music that I'm going to give to you. It doesn't work that way. So we need receivers as much as we need senders.
Yeah, this is, I actually said in my video, they might even get mad at you if you wave at them and smile. Because when we first moved into the east side here, we just sat on the porch all day long, waving at everybody. They would get pissed off. They would give us the finger and all kinds of things, which was super weird, but not really. Because, like, what the hell are these people doing,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it kind of flipped. If we forgot to wave at them, they were like, how come you're not waving at us? Are you mad at? And now we know everybody waves. It's a thing. And I feel like we're all closer just from that little bitty thing that took them some time to be receivers. But we got to teach both sides of this, the send and the receive.
That's beautiful.
Well, I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, you and I just met tonight. We could have met on Saturday, I guess, but I screwed up. Um, and this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Tess, for coming on the show. Did we forget to talk about anything?
I don't think so. You got my website, my live show. I go every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. On Facebook Live under my business name Wings Unfolded. And I'm also on YouTube. You can see all the other videos that I've done over this last year on my YouTube channel under Tess Miller. But the playlist for all of those videos is called Growing in Uncertainty.
All right. I'm glad you didn't say that word earlier because we would have added 20 more minutes to the show for sure.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course. I think this was great. Can't wait to meet you face to face someday. I'm sure it'll happen. And I'll be looking for your book on your website and ordering it from you. And what would you like to take us out with?
I'm gonna send you out with a quote that was my favorite in high school, since we were talking about Grand Ledge and I went to high school there. My favorite quote from the time I was in high school was, "Love many, trust few, and always paddle your own canoe."
And with that, I have no improvement. So we'll see you all tomorrow on Every Damn Day.